So, Ian, 25 years on, what is your... I mean, the DUP, your dad was famously opposed to the Good Friday Agreement, never. It has been credited with giving Northern Ireland peace and stability. So, looking back on it now, what's your thoughts about the Good Friday Agreement 25 years on?
Well, I think there are a couple of very important things. People often refer to this as a peace agreement and the delivery of peace. And if there hadn't have been the Belfast Agreement, there wouldn't have been peace. But we have to be absolutely clear about this. The people of Northern Ireland were entitled to peace. It was a right. And the idea that they had to sit down and make an agreement with the men of violence and with terrorism in order to have peace, and the terrorists had to get some win in that process, has always, I think, jarred with people in Northern Ireland, because having peace is a right. The war was illegal. The activities of the IRA were wrong. Things that they were doing should not have ever been done on any people. And the reprisals and all the rest of the violence which flowed from it was entirely wrong. And it shouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, we had a process which ended up saying, well, now that you've been engaged in violence, to get you off violence will guarantee your political masters a place in government forever. And that's essentially what has happened over the last 25 years. Now, I welcome peace. Only a fool would not welcome peace. We're entitled to it. What we need to have is political stability. And the institutions that have flowed from the Belfast Agreement have not been stable. For about 40% of the time of the last 25 years, they haven't functioned properly. And we've got to try and get to a point where they do function properly. And that only will happen if we've got good, stable political leadership, and leadership that recognises that you've got essentially two tribes in Northern Ireland, and they've got to work together and try and find a way through the morass that has arisen and continues
Ian,
to arise.
what do you make of the breaking news about the IRA terror threat ahead of the Biden visit?
Well, Esther, I'm not surprised by it. Terrorism hasn't gone away. We have had serious threats on the lives of police officers over the last 25 years. We've had a number of them murdered. In recent weeks, there was an attempt to murder a senior police officer here, as you know. So that terrorism threat has never gone away. People like me and other public representatives live under a constant threat of terrorist violence still in Northern Ireland, despite the fact that people say you've got peace and stability. We have certainly a better situation than we had 25, 26 years ago, but we still do have this cloud of men of violence and gangs affiliated with republicanism and with other groupings who
and
are
what
still
about
prepared
the
to be
police?
engaged in violence. And I think the fact that we've got the highest terrorist threat in the UK is a clear indication that a lot more work has got to be done, because 25 years after the so-called peace agreement, we're still dealing with the legacy, the long-tail legacy of that process.
And what do you think of the police releasing this information? What does that say to you, that the police have given such information out?
Well, I actually welcome the fact that they're transparent. They're not trying to hide it. The fact of the matter is that people should be alert in Northern Ireland. They should be alert to the potential violence and the potential threat that is there, and the actual threat that is there. And they should make sure that they are alert. I mean, you'll know when you're in the tubes in London, you will regularly get calls. If you see anything, call it out and go to the right person and make that call and identify it. Well, in Northern Ireland, having been alert at all times to those threats is absolutely necessary. So I'm actually pleased that the police have done it, and it does indicate, and I think the police are being very clever here, the police are underpowered in Northern Ireland by about 2,000 officers. They need at least another 1,000 to 2,000 officers. The budget hasn't been put in place. Mr Chris Heaton-Harris hasn't given a budget to Northern Ireland to allow us to address this police shortage, and I think the police are saying, you're about to have a presidential visit in Northern Ireland. Here's a major terrorism threat. We're at the highest levels of security danger, and we don't have enough police officers. I think the police are being very clever at doing that and highlighting the fact that they need officers.
Ian, just finally, we're 25 years on from the Good Friday Agreement, and here we are back in another constitutional crisis with your party not taking its seats in the Northern Ireland Assembly in objection to the Windsor framework. That's now passed. It's gone through Parliament. It's been introduced. What's going to happen? I mean, are the DUP going to stay out of the Assembly in perpetuity, or are you going to go back in at some point?
Well, you wouldn't expect my party to operate a political institution that was ultimately leading to the destruction of Northern Ireland's place in the Union. That's the position that we have a mandate for, that we shouldn't be in that institution as long as these issues pertain. They've got to be fixed. The protocol was passed by equally large numbers, and the government recognised ultimately that had to change. They need to continue this work and get significant changes and make the process function in a way that removes the threat that unionists feel that they're being pushed out of the union. I mean, you wouldn't accept it if I were to say that goods that travel from Yorkshire to London have to have travel documents attached to them, that they're treated as if they're a third country part. But even the Green Lane that Mr Sunak told us was operational now between Northern Ireland, every single lorry using that Green Lane will have to have customs declarations for the goods upon them travelling from any part of the UK to Northern Ireland. That is not acceptable. We are not some third country. We are part and parcel of the United Kingdom and should be treated as such.
Ian Paisley Jr, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And it's always great to reminisce about your dad, who was a great friend of mine in Parliament when I first got elected and was very kind to me. So.
And I remember you coming to his big celebratory party.
I did. I felt.
We're going down memory lane now.
I felt very honoured to be invited. He was very good to me when I first got elected, so it's always great to reminisce about him.
We're a very good friend of his, so thank you.